to money matters, most of us understand the importance of paying attention to the bills. So with a national debt on the rise and a debt ceiling deadline that's come and gone, why does it seem that elected leaders are dragging their feet when it comes to dealing with the debt? Tonight, a look at why it matters in this two-part series, Debt Rising.
The debt clock keeps ticking, each second moving closer to a total national debt of $20 trillion with a T. That comes out to about $61,000 of debt for every American citizen. Those seem like scary numbers, so you might think lawmakers would be scrambling to deal with the next fiscal cliff, raising the debt ceiling. Past crises have led to partial government shutdowns, yet congressional leaders and administration officials are downplaying any immediate concern this time.
But we will deal with it certainly before the August recess. As to the other issue you mentioned about the government shutdowns, no one desires that. We're a long way away from that.
So what is it? The debt limit or debt ceiling is the congressionally imposed amount the U.S. Treasury can borrow to pay the government's bills. Raising that borrowing power to avoid financial default allows continued spending on things like Social Security and Medicare benefits, tax refunds, military salaries, along with interest on the national debt and other obligations.
Ceiling is a misleading word of sorts. It implies a stopping point. But when it comes to the public debt, the sky's the limit. Nearly a quarter century ago, when President Clinton took office, the outstanding debt was about $4 trillion. A purring economy, budget cuts helped keep it in check, but began climbing again under President Bush. And when he left office in 2009, it was about $12 trillion. It only accelerated under President Obama, now approaching $20 trillion, showing little sign of slowing under the new chief executive.
Through government shutdowns, S&P downgrades, sequesters, and even suspension of the debt ceiling itself by Congress over the past 2 years, the self-inflicted wounds have turned the debt ceiling argument into a political piñata. The first thing to remember about our shared debt is we always have had one. In 1790, at the birth of our republic, it was $75 million, mostly war debts and the initial inability of Congress to tax. The debt is not just a bunch of numbers viewed in isolation. It's now a political tool that lawmakers willingly use as a bargaining chip tied to budget priorities. Fiscal policy like spending and tax cuts can help drive the economy out of recession, and increased military funding can respond to national emergencies like the 9/11 terror attacks. So flexibility is built into debt ceiling increases and has been used 22 times in the past 23 years.
It's become a political football. So what happens is, instead of using the debt ceiling as a reminder or a nudge to get us back onto a smart and sustainable fiscal path, lawmakers end up holding it hostage, and it becomes politicized.
Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin warned Congress last week his department will have to take, quote, extraordinary measures to avoid default on the federal government's obligations. Treasury won't have issues paying its creditors until late summer. Short-term accounting flexibility would eliminate an immediate collapse. But prolonged delays could hurt the U.S. credit rating and further increase deficit costs into the billions.
It seems like the legislative priorities are not so much about let's fix the debt, let's fix the deficit, let's control this growth and spending, but really just to continue the spending, to continue, to add to the debt and deficit.
If our creditors ever lose confidence in our ability to pay back our debt, interest rates could shoot up dramatically.
That would be disastrous for anybody who has ordinary kinds of debt, mortgage, car debt, consumer loans, and for businesses that want to invest. It could precipitate another recession.
Now it's up to congressional leadership to determine when, not if, the debt ceiling will be raised.
Of course we'll do that. The government is not going to default. We'll do it. In what context, I wouldn't predict at this point.
Tomorrow, our series on the debt ceiling dilemma focuses on the financial consequences for your wallet and what solutions, if any, are coming from your elected representatives to tackle this ever-expanding issue.